When he ignores you, your heart contracts. Your mind drowns in a sea of assumptions, and the silence roars louder than any words. But what if that distance is, in truth, a quiet confession of love? What seems like indifference might conceal a profound psychological struggle that even he cannot fully comprehend. In this video, we'll uncover why a man who loves you might paradoxically pull away and ignore you. We'll explore the unconscious forces guiding him, the feminine projections he bears, and the deep-seated fear of being consumed by what he most craves. Carl Jung's analytical psychology will illuminate our path, revealing how love stirs not only light, but also shadow. If you've ever pondered why he grows silent, brace yourself. The answers dwell deeper within him and within you than you might suspect. Leave a comment below with the phrase, "I deserve a conscious love." Jung's analytical psychology provides a powerful lens for decoding contradictory behaviors, especially in romance. When a man who loves you distances himself or ignores you, it's often not a sign of disinterest, but an unconscious reaction to inner forces he cannot master. Jung describes projection, a process where we cast onto another parts of ourselves we've yet to acknowledge. When a man falls in love, he often projects onto the woman his anima, the feminine archetype within his psyche. Unknowingly, she becomes the vessel for all he seeks, fears, and longs to embrace within himself. This can overwhelm him. When faced with his own shadow, fears, traumas, insecurities, he may retreat. True love ignites the journey of individuation, requiring him to confront his unconscious and weave together both his light and his hidden aspects. In this view, ignoring becomes a shield, not because he lacks care, but because he cares too deeply and doesn't know how to navigate the transformation love demands. His distance often mirrors a tension between the yearning for connection and the dread of losing his identity. Rather than viewing silence as rejection, see it as a clue that the relationship has touched profound depths. The integration of the anima in him and the shadow in her are essential steps toward an authentic, unidealized bond. If he loves you yet ignores you, he may be wrestling with the greatest challenge of his psychological path, to love without losing himself. Love, particularly the kind that reaches the soul's core, is not just joy and union. It's also a piercing mirror reflecting our concealed selves. Jung warns that what remains unconscious within us emerges in the external world, especially in our closest relationships. When a man truly loves, that emotion can awaken not only his dreams and desires, but also his deepest wounds, traumas, and fears. His shadow. Per Jung, the shadow holds all that's been repressed or denied, impulses and feelings that don't align with the ideal self-image, banished to the unconscious. When this man meets a woman who stirs genuine emotion, he begins to project onto her both his light and his darkness. This natural psychic process demands maturity to comprehend and integrate. More often than not, instead of drawing nearer, he pulls back. True love invites surrender, but also requires transformation. His soul seems to sense that to love wholly, he must face all he's avoided. The fear of losing himself in another, of losing control, of dismantling lifelong defenses, outweighs the pull toward connection, and so he withdraws. The urge to ignore, isolate, or act coldly may be an unconscious bid to preserve a fragile identity. When love stirs the shadow, he stands at an inner abyss, choosing between confronting his wounds or clinging to the comfort of the familiar. Since many lack the emotional tools for this reckoning, they opt for flight. Here, silence, lack of contact, or seeming indifference doesn't always mean a lack of love. On the contrary, it may signal that the feeling has roused something so vast he doesn't yet know how to handle it. This dynamic, though painful for the one receiving it, also invites each to look inward and see what this bond reflects. For the woman who feels ignored, the pain can be crushing, especially if she too projects her own idealizations and unmet needs onto him. Yet grasping this process can shift the experience. When she sees that his withdrawal may stem from an internal battle with his shadow, she stops taking the abandonment personally and starts to discern the psychological forces at work. True love is a path of individuation, where both are called to become truer versions of themselves. A deep connection will inevitably awaken childhood wounds, inherited patterns, and the defenses built to endure. This is essential, for transformation demands crisis. So, when he ignores you after showing love, he may be grappling with the fear of dissolving in you, of surrendering in a way that asks more than he can give now. What he truly fears isn't the relationship itself, but what it stirs within him, the need for change, healing, and shadow integration. This is the beauty and pain of soul-deep love. It doesn't merely unite, it reveals, and we're not always prepared to face what's unveiled. By understanding the psychological roots of this behavior, you gain power, not to control him, but to choose how you respond to pain with awareness, compassion, and courage. Jung defined the anima as the feminine archetype in a man's psyche, an inner image shaping how he perceives and connects with women. Formed by emotional ties with feminine figures, especially the mother, it's more than an idealization. It's a bridge to the fullness of his masculine psyche. But when a man hasn't yet recognized his anima, he projects it onto the women he loves, crafting relationships filled with illusions, expectations, and deep frustrations. When a man loves you yet withdraws, he's often wrestling with this projection. You become, for him, the embodiment of all that's mysterious, sensitive, and emotional, qualities he was never taught to see in himself. You reflect his most fragile, buried parts. He's drawn to you, yet feels threatened. This encounter with his inner feminine can overwhelm a masculine ego trained to value control, reason, and emotional distance as strength. The anima isn't just a romantic ideal, it carries emotional chaos, the longing for fusion, intuition, and sensitivity, forces that, when misunderstood, spark confusion and fear. Thus, the love he feels for you can awaken this neglected part of his psyche and trigger an internal crisis. When he gazes at you, he doesn't see only you. He sees all he desires, all he dreads, and all he's never known how to name. This projection can enchant at first. He sets you on a pedestal, viewing you as unique, flawless, almost mythical. But as reality unveils your humanity, the projection fades and disillusionment creeps in, not because you've changed, but because you were never what he projected. What he loved was an inner image needing reintegration within him, not something to find outside. When he realizes this, an emotional collapse strikes. The fantasy crumbles, bringing fear, unease, and withdrawal. The wounded masculine, cut off from sensitivity, who learned vulnerability is weakness, approaches the sacred part of his psyche through this projection, but lacks the tools to manage it. It's like opening a door to an uncharted realm, and that realm roars. He feels small, lost, confused, and so he flees. His retreat wounds the one receiving it deeply, but his pain is real too, silent, concealed. It's the void of not knowing himself, of not grasping his emotions, of being unable to sustain a bond beyond reason. He loves you, yet fears you, not for who you are, but for what you represent, a summons to transformation. This dynamic isn't your doing. You didn't spark his crisis, but you can choose how to respond with this insight. Instead of trying to rescue him or urge him back, the strongest act may be to grant him space to face his path. Meanwhile, reflect on your own projections. What role did you cast him in? What gap was he filling in your psyche? Love isn't just a meeting of bodies, it's a mirroring of souls. Understanding the anima and its role in masculine psychology shows withdrawal not as rejection, but as an inner crisis. A call for each to return to themselves, reclaim lost parts, and perhaps one day meet again, not as myths, but as whole beings. When a man loves yet ignores you, his actions may seem perplexing. Yet, through Jung's analytical psychology, ignoring isn't mere neglect or disinterest. It's often a psychic shield against what he cannot yet integrate. To grasp this, look past the surface and see the unconscious mechanism stirring in the male psyche when faced with a profound bond. True love transforms, dismantling internal frameworks built on emotional repression, rigid masculinity, and fear of surrender. When a man enters a relationship craving emotional presence, vulnerability, and authenticity, his inner system may resist. Ignoring isn't just escape. It's an unconscious effort to keep control over a reality starting to crack. Jung reveals that the unconscious is alive, and when unintegrated, it emerges as symptoms, contradictions, or defenses. The withdrawal, silence, or sudden chill are signs of this struggle. He doesn't know how to voice what he feels because he hasn't fully learned to feel. For many men, emotional expression was stifled early, so when love demands true connection, he shuts down. His defense is silence. His tactic is retreat. Often, this man has aligned with the archetype of the hero, the rational, the strong. Vulnerability endangers his sense of self. He fears dissolving in the relationship, being overtaken by emotions he can't name, or relying on something beyond his grasp. So, he ignores you even while loving you, because true love calls for surrender, the opposite of what he was taught to embody as a man. This emotional blindness is fed by the shadow, Jung's term for the hidden personality, holding all that's been rejected or deemed unworthy. The masculine shadow may harbor fears of abandonment, insecurity, buried anger, neediness, or fragility. When love stirs these, he faces parts of himself he doesn't know. Silence becomes a way to avoid breaking apart. Yet ignoring can also carry symbolic weight. In archetypal tales, the hero often endures a desert, exile, or time of withdrawal before rediscovering himself. In this light, his retreat may be an unconscious turn inward, a chance to reorder his inner world, to name his emotions. But when this stays unconscious, he can't express it, and the woman feels only abandonment. This is where many relationships stumble. The woman sees the silence as a mark of her inadequacy, when she's caught in a process more his than hers. By recognizing this, she can break the cycle of pain. Instead of desperately seeking answers or begging for notice, she turns inward, pondering what this behavior awakens in her. Jung said that what stays unconscious becomes fate. If he doesn't understand why he withdraws or can't sustain his love, he'll repeat this pattern across all his relationships. And if the woman doesn't see this, she risks wounding herself by trying to mend him. Ignoring is a cry from the unconscious, a plea for time, space, and silence to reorder within. It's not easy for the one who feels, waits, and loves, but viewing this behavior as part of a deeper dynamic can turn pain into wisdom. Most crucially, it lets love, even if not returned as hoped, serve as a mirror for both partners' growth. Faced with the silence of a man who loves yet pulls away, the woman often spirals into an emotional storm. Doubt, rejection, insecurity, anger, neediness. Yet within this pain lies a hidden call to awareness. Jung taught that every meaningful encounter is a chance for individuation, the journey to become your true self by uniting your inner opposites. Here, the other's silence becomes a doorway to self-knowledge. The awakened woman doesn't deny her pain, but refuses to drown in it. When she sees his behavior as part of a broader unconscious process, not a gauge of her value, she shifts the energy from the wound to her core strength. She knows true love begins within, and the other is a mirror, not the source of her wholeness. The silence that once crushed her becomes a space for inner listening. Instead of asking, "Why is he ignoring me?" she asks, "What does this absence reveal about me?" This shift is profound. Rather than seeking validation from him, she explores her own vulnerabilities, attachment patterns, dreams of perfect love, and fears of being left. In doing so, she begins to heal. This woman doesn't chase someone retreating or force answers from him. She understands his silence reflects an internal journey only he can resolve, and she honors that, not passively, but as an act of self-love. His withdrawal may be the space she needs to return to herself, fortify her identity, and reshape her emotional narrative with maturity and clarity. The awakened woman also sees her own shadow. Just as he projects his anima onto her, she may have cast onto him the absent father, the perfect savior, or the partner meant to fill her gaps. By bringing these projections to light, she frees herself from unconscious cycles and begins to choose with clarity and freedom. She becomes whole, no longer a fragment seeking completion. Turning silence into awareness takes courage. It's simpler to blame him, to call him cold or immature. It's harder to look within and face old, lingering pains. But in this confrontation, her true power emerges. Not a power that controls or manipulates, but one that embraces, observes, and transforms. The awakened feminine is receptive, yet not passive. Sensitive, yet not so fragile it shatters. Deep, yet self-protective. It knows when to hold on and when to let go. It sees that true love liberates, not clings. Even in absence, it doesn't fade. It grows. When she reaches this awareness, the relational dynamic shifts. The man, still tangled in his inner struggles, often senses this change and may feel its weight. Sometimes, this quiet, steady presence prompts him to look within, to grow, to see what he's losing. But this isn't assured, nor should it be her aim. True transformation comes when she stops living for his reaction and aligns with her own truth. The awakened woman knows she deserves a love that doesn't silence or bewilder her. Yet she also grasps that his growth is often gradual, and she can't hasten or steer his journey. Her role is to stay true to herself, nurture her soul, grow through her experiences, and wisely choose what merits her presence. His silence becomes a teacher, not a penalty, a mirror, not a judgment. She moves forward, not fleeing pain, but knowing it's part of the journey, not its end. Love is more than a meeting. It's a revelation. When he ignores you, even while loving you, he may be battling parts of himself he doesn't yet know. His silence speaks of a chaotic inner world, unhealed wounds, and a projected anima confronting him with all he's yet to grasp. You, on the other side, bear the pain of feeling unseen, but you also hold the chance to turn that pain into awareness. Jung taught that true union requires integration. He must find his truth, and you yours. Love thrives only when it stops being an escape and becomes a presence. And presence begins when you choose to return to yourself. If this content has stirred something in you, subscribe to the channel and share this video with anyone who needs to understand these hidden dynamics of love. Leave a comment with the phrase, "I deserve a conscious love," and join a community seeking deeper, truer, and transformative relationships. Click the video on your screen now and continue this journey of self-knowledge with us.